The scotch in Victor Harrington's crystal tumbler caught the light as he gestured dismissively around his opulent office. 40 years I've spent building Harrington Global from the struggling import business your father nearly ran into the ground. 40 years of sacrifice while you were getting useless degrees in environmental science. I kept my expression neutral, watching my uncle perform the speech he'd clearly been rehearsing. At 58, Victor still cut an imposing figure, tall, broad-shouldered, with a full head of silver hair and the practiced charm that had seduced countless business partners, politicians, and subsequently their wives. The board agrees with me, Eliza. Your sustainable initiatives are costing us millions. This isn't a charity, it's a business. He set down his glass with theatrical precision. I'm terminating your position, effective immediately. I see, I said quietly. And does the board know about the macabre deal? His eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. What about it? Just curious if they're aware of who really owns Pacific Rim Holdings. Victor laughed, but I caught the slight tightening around his mouth. Security will escort you out. Your personal belongings will be shipped to your apartment. He pressed the intercom. Margaret, send security to my office. I stood smoothing my charcoal pencil skirt. Don't worry about my things. I won't be gone long. Is that a threat? Victor looked amused. Your father tried to threaten me once too. Didn't work out well for him, did it? The mention of my father sent a familiar pain through my chest. Daniel Harrington, brilliant, principled, and according to the official story, killed by a heart attack at 45, conveniently just as he was gathering evidence of Victor's illegal trading activities. Actually, I replied, gathering my purse, I call it more of a promise. 2 beefy security guards appeared at the door, looking uncomfortable. I'd known both men for years. Miss Harrington, we're sorry, but... The older one began. It's fine, Frank. I understand you're just doing your job. As they escorted me through the executive floor, past shocked employees who quickly averted their eyes, I felt strangely calm. 7 years I'd worked at Harrington Global, starting in the sustainability department and working my way up to director of corporate social responsibility. 7 years of watching Victor systematically dismantle my father's ethical legacy while building a global empire on exploitation and environmental destruction. Outside the gleaming Manhattan skyscraper that housed Harrington Global, I pulled out my phone and texted a single word to my lawyer. Initiated. The response came immediately. Documents filed. Meeting confirmed for 9 a.m. tomorrow. I took a deep breath of the autumn air and hailed a taxi. Greenwich Village, please. An hour later, I sat in the cozy living room of my father's oldest friend and former business partner, Lawrence Chen. Now 70, Lawrence had retired from business after my father's death, but had remained a trusted advisor and surrogate parent to me after I lost both my parents, my mother to cancer when I was 12, my father when I was 23. He fired you then? Lawrence asked, pouring tea from an antique Chinese teapot. Just as we expected, I accepted the delicate cup. He couldn't resist the opportunity to gloat. Lawrence's eyes twinkled behind his glasses. Your father always said Victor's ego would be his downfall. Tomorrow we find out if he was right. I sipped the jasmine tea, letting its familiar scent calm my nerves. Are the other shareholders prepared? All 5 have confirmed. The proxy votes are secured. Lawrence set down his cup. Eliza, are you absolutely certain about this? Once we move forward. I've never been more certain of anything, I interrupted. Victor killed my father, Lawrence. Maybe not with his own hands, but he's responsible. Lawrence didn't argue. He'd been the one to find my father that night, had seen the missing files, the signs of struggle carefully disguised as a medical emergency. What Victor never understood about Dad was that he always played the long game, I continued. The trust, the offshore accounts, the deadman switches, Dad knew Victor would betray him eventually. Daniel was always 3 moves ahead, Lawrence agreed. But Victor is dangerous when cornered. So am I. The next morning, I dressed with deliberate care. A navy suit my father had bought me when I graduated from Yale, simple pearl earrings that had belonged to my mother. Professional, understated, nothing that suggested the earthquake I was about to trigger. The Harrington Global boardroom occupied the entire top floor of the building, with panoramic views of the Manhattan skyline. By the time I arrived, most of the board members and major shareholders were already seated around the massive table. Victor sat at the head, engaged in conversation with the CFO, Norton Wells. The room fell silent as I entered. Victor looked up, his expression shifting from confusion to anger. "What are you doing here? This is a closed meeting." I smiled, taking an empty seat near the middle of the table. "I'm exactly where I should be." "Security," Victor barked. Lawrence Chen entered behind me, accompanied by a severe-looking woman in her 50s carrying a leather portfolio. "That won't be necessary, Victor," Lawrence said mildly. "Allow me to introduce Evelyn Blackwell from Blackwell, Sanderson, and Pierce." The name of the prestigious law firm caused a ripple of murmurs around the table. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded Norton Wells, always quick to support Victor. Evelyn Blackwell placed her portfolio on the table. "I represent the DH Trust, which as of yesterday holds controlling interest in Harrington Global Enterprises." Victor laughed, though the sound held no humor. "This is absurd. I hold majority shares in this company." "You hold 27%, Evelyn corrected, opening her portfolio and distributing documents to each person at the table. "The DH Trust now controls 34%, transferred from various holdings that matured upon Ms. Harrington's 30th birthday yesterday." The blood drained from Victor's face as he scanned the documents. "This isn't possible. These shares were dispersed among several shell companies and offshore accounts." "Yes," I interjected. "My father was quite thorough." The board members were reviewing the documents with expressions ranging from shock to calculation. Victor's allies looked to him for guidance, while others, those who had respected my father, seemed almost amused. "Even if this is legitimate," Victor said, recovering slightly, "these shares plus my own don't constitute a controlling interest in the company." Lawrence Chen cleared his throat. "That's where proxy votes become relevant. I believe Ms. Blackwell has statements from shareholders representing an additional 22% of the company, pledging their votes to Ms. Harrington's direction." As the reality of the situation dawned on him, Victor's composure cracked. "This is a hostile takeover." "No, Uncle Victor," I said calmly. "It's a correction." I nodded to Evelyn, who continued, "The first order of business is a vote on the leadership of Harrington Global. The DH Trust proposes the removal of Victor Harrington as CEO and chairman, to be replaced by Elizabeth Harrington as CEO and Lawrence Chen as interim chairman." "This is outrageous," Norton Wells sputtered. "Victor built this company into a criminal enterprise," I finished for him. "Which brings us to the second order of business." Evelyn distributed another set of documents, these containing detailed evidence of Victor's illegal activities, from money laundering through the Macau casino development to environmental violations in the Southeast Asian manufacturing facilities, to tax evasion schemes that had defrauded the government of millions. "We have two options," I addressed the stunned board members. "We can clean house, implement legitimate business practices, and move forward as a reformed company. Or we can watch federal prosecutors dismantle everything while we all face potential criminal charges for complicity." The vote took less than 15 minutes. As Victor was escorted from the boardroom, he paused beside my chair. "You think you've won," he hissed, too quietly for others to hear. "But you have no idea what it takes to run this company. You'll destroy your father's legacy faster than I ever could." I met his gaze steadily. "My father's legacy isn't this company, Victor, it's me." The next weeks were a whirlwind of activity. I appointed a transitional management team, initiated internal investigations, and began the process of unwinding Victor's most egregious schemes while preserving the legitimate aspects of the business. The press had a field day with the story. "Harrington Hair orchestrates stunning coup. Corporate princess reclaims throne." And my personal favorite, environmental scientist takes over billion-dollar empire, vows reforms. 1 month after taking control, I sat with Lawrence in what had once been Victor's office, now completely redesigned with sustainable materials and actual living plants instead of the sterile luxury my uncle had preferred. "The federal investigation is proceeding," Lawrence reported. "Victor's assets have been frozen, and the prosecutor believes they have enough for an indictment." Good. I signed the last of a stack of documents, a new corporate ethics policy that put environmental and social responsibility at the heart of our business model. What about the Southeast Asian factories? The remediation is underway, and the new wage structure has been implemented. It will cut into profits initially, but the goodwill and reduced turnover should offset that within a year. I nodded, looking out at the New York skyline bathed in sunset. "My father used to bring me here when I was little. He'd point to all the buildings and say, "Business isn't just about making money, Lizzie. It's about building something that makes the world better." He would be incredibly proud of you, Lawrence said softly. "I'm not done yet." I turned back to him. "The Macaw project needs to be shut down completely, and I want to expand our renewable energy division, make it the centerpiece of our future strategy. The board won't like that. Even your supporters think the transitions you've already initiated are radical." I smiled. "Then I guess I'll have to convince them. That's what leadership is about, right?" 6 months later, Harrington Global, renamed Harrington Sustainable Enterprises, released its first quarterly earnings under my leadership. Despite the radical changes and significant investments in remediation and restructuring, we showed a modest profit, defying analysts' predictions of catastrophic losses. Victor, awaiting trial on multiple federal charges, had attempted to rally opposition among the remaining shareholders, but found little support. His decades of bullying and backstabbing had left him with few allies willing to risk their own positions to support a falling star. On the anniversary of my father's death, I visited his grave alone, placing a single white lily on the headstone. "We did it, Dad," I said quietly. "The company is back on the path you envisioned. Not perfect yet, but getting there." The wind rustled through the cemetery trees, and I could almost hear his voice, patient, wise, always challenging me to think beyond the obvious. As I walked back to my car, my phone chimed with a message from my assistant. Malaysian government approved the reforestation project. Partners confirmed for Sustainable Manufacturing Initiative. I smiled, feeling a sense of peace that had eluded me since my father's death. Victor had been right about one thing: I wasn't my father. I couldn't simply recreate his vision for the company. I could do better. The inheritance my father left wasn't just shares in a company or evidence against his brother. It was the understanding that business had the power to harm or heal, to destroy or build, to perpetuate injustice or create opportunity. Some called what I did revenge. I prefer to think of it as restoration, of my father's legacy, of the company's integrity, and of my own sense of purpose. As for Victor, I heard he had taken a plea deal, exchanging information on his corrupt political connections for a reduced sentence. His empire had crumbled. His reputation was in tatters, and his fortune was largely gone to legal fees and settlements. But I hadn't destroyed him for destruction's sake. I'd removed him because his leadership was toxic to the company, to the communities we served, and to the planet itself. The best revenge wasn't watching him fall. It was building something better from the ruins of what he corrupted. 6 months after taking control of the company, I authorized one final change: a small memorial plaque in the lobby bearing a quote from my father: "Profit without principle is merely theft disguised as success." Beneath it, I added words of my own: "The future belongs to those who build it with integrity, compassion, and vision." That, more than any corporate takeover or legal victory, was my true inheritance.